Test one, test two. Let's see if this thing can hear me. So, where do I want to start rambling? Let's do a materials update. Testing. Mechanically compliant spherical components. This is the tough resin. It's holding up better. I printed them out in standard resin, and it's cracking. The crack here. So I'll probably try reprinting it a third time in the correct orientation, which is this way on the print bed, or had them standing up, and that led to this unsatisfying shape. These are kind of cool. The idea come up with some way of with the transducers out. Probably going to have to hack this thing apart, but this is a Sokol design, but it wasn't. It's not cutting the cake. The idea is to have something in here. These would be waveform injectors, and this base. The transducers have to have something to kick off of. This might be the solution that I'm looking for, and that I'd have like a single transducer, and I could have it pumping two quadrants or pumping a quadrant through this. Because, yeah, it's a spherical joint, and I'm trying to build spherically. Here is my enough of being a clown. I remember what I wanted to talk a little bit more about was the was I abducted? I know I had it was back in May. Let's see, I flew up there to Latvia. This is going full circle to one of my earlier blogs, but flew out on Mother's Day. So what is that, May 18th? I got back at the end of the week. Let's see, I had 4 days. 23rd is 24th. I know. Be May 21st. The morning of May 21st is when they. I'm going to go with the NHI, the alien hypothesis, because the directed energy technology was way too advanced. But May 21st, it's a shitty print. Anyway, the buzzing at the beginning, it started with a buzzing, then it changed pitch, and then the blue and red flashing. Blue is incoming, waveforms that are approaching you are blue shifted, waveforms that are leaving you are red shifted. So it was a blue-red. So they came in, they tuned, they found where my body resonated, and then they started pumping me, or it was a visual from the red-blue. It went into a circle with a thing around it, and as it resolved, as I thought, oh, fuck this. And then that's when the vision started. But the if it's the aliens, then it would be a saucer came over, a probe ship, and then they released a sphere, which coasted down into my area in New Jersey and hovered near the house. Infrared camera will be able to see through a house. You'd be surprised. And then they turned on the directed energy system and resolved my neural network, my brain. And then they induced a visionary state with two-way communication. And yeah, anyway. I spent years in the monastery learning to do inner visual work, turn on the third eye. It's kind of why I have a crappy, I forget people's names. I just do. It's not nice. I used to be able to retain people's names, but that's more of your prefrontal cortex and ego. It's more of the domain of the ego. But when you start over to visualizing, that I think is when you go through a change in neurology, and focusing on how to visualize is different than remembering verbs and spoken words. By doing these vlogs, I know what I really wanted to get to. By doing these vlogs, I've come to notice that I need to be able to speak complete sentences or complex thoughts. And that's been a struggle throughout my life because people will vibe in on what I'm saying, and then they just interrupt me and they got to run with the conversation because they're so much more fucking important than I am. And they've got the vibe and energy that's coming from me, and it cuts me off. I think when I was learning calculus, I would call it the snatch. I'd sit there, I'd look at the exam, and then I would see the answer, and then it would be like, okay, it'd be there for a millisecond and go and get snatched. And then I'd have to be like, oh, what was the fucking show work? I can't just write the answer down. Yeah, this is the harder plastic. It's more compliant, but it breaks. Metal, making them with metal would be the right one. But focus, must stay focused. My interior mental life is, it's hard to describe. I have access, there's a voice, there's the clairvoyant voice that tells me shit. Like when I saw the black triangle, the voice said, look up. And I was like, oh. And I looked up and, so sometimes when I am thinking, I'm just letting a stream of consciousness occur, and it's usually quite detailed and very accurate. And here's why. I've done this before on a single video. So we're going to, from here, switch over to some more of my Buddhism. Because really studying Buddhism and going to a monastery is about developing your inner life, your inner self. And with that comes different mental states. I used to read about it. A lot of it's in the Hindu philosophy or the yogic scriptures. Vipassana is different from Shunyata, is different from Shamatha, but they're all... Vipassana is directly correlated to Shamatha, and Shunyata is the knowledge, talking about emptiness. Ooh, it's a fancy word, Shunyata. How often do you hear that? You have to study with the Arya Nagarjuna in order to hear the word Shunyata. Vipassana is a Buddhist term. Shamatha is a Hindu term, and if you're being a strict Buddhist, the two shall not meet, but they are basically the same thing. Insight meditation. And by doing, for years I would go and I do full body prostrations, and became familiar with the wisdom deity of Avalokitesvara. So here we're in a tantric discourse and not a Mahayana discourse. Within tantric Buddhism, they do recognize that there are other spiritual powers, spiritual entities other than the Buddha. The world has been, since the time of Jesus and the Buddha, I think Lao Tzu also, those were monotheistic religions, and before that we had polytheistic religions, which is like, Zeus, Hera, also known as Jove, and I think Hera still? Did Hera won that? Anyway, these pantheon of gods and goddesses. Polytheism is ascribing various spiritual factors to natural things in the world, whereas monotheism is directing more of the knowledge and trying to become self-aware. I'm just trying to check and see if there's anything, but the inner monologue is being quiet right now. Anyway, polytheism, monotheism, Buddhism, tantric view. Within Tantrayana, you do, especially the Nyingma Buddhists, it's all about making mandala and special rituals. And Buddhism got away from doing bloody sacrifices, which Hinduism still uses. Like, you slaughter goats and get stoned, or do cannabis and goat sacrifices to your ancestors, and that's a Shivite process, a Shivite practice. Buddhism would be like creating this fire and offering real things like some burning money. Don't do that. Seeds, things that are non-violent, that don't require you taking somebody else's life. So me and the book, we're going to evolve, segue over to this. Oh, what I really wanted to talk about was some of the private chit-chats with the guru in the beginning. This would be the winter of 2002. So when I met him, I knew that I'd known him in a past life. There was a feeling like, I know you. I know you. Who the hell are you? I know that I know you. In our private chit-chats, he would allude to, or this chit-chat ended up being disastrous for me, but anyway, I'm just picturing him. He comes to mind forcefully for me. His website's called The Primordial Alchemist. It's good old Max. And my enlightenment is that Max is Padmasambhava. I think where'd it go? Who is usually ascribed to being this. The Turton, which is my claim, being the Turton, being the reincarnated Turton. You have to go back and study Liu Geltsen. I don't like the Dharma name of Chokro. You look up on, here are the links I'll put. Chokro Liu Geltsen received empowerments from Vimala Mitra as well as Padmasambhava. Liu Geltsen was friends with Yeshe Tsogyal. And when I'm in a funky mood, I just start trying to remember those discussions. I know my brain, my mind, my mental activities are accurate is through the constant meditation and prayer of other Buddhists within the Vajrayana. Vajrayana Buddhism is not Tibetan Buddhism. There is a subtle difference, but within Tibetan Buddhism is Vajrayana Buddhism. But back to private chit-chats with Max. It started out with like, you have a magic book that's quite famous. That's the one-line zinger that keeps sticking in my mind. So, and he said, one day you'll go to the bookstore and you'll pull a book off the shelf and it'll be dedicated to you. My buddy Ben Benemin, miss him. But Ben kind of interfered with that prophecy and brought the first edition of this sadhana. This is my sadhana. These are all addressed to me. I'll show you why in a moment. But so he gave me a bunch of little things. Here's somebody talking. Coming. Awkward. Anyway, you have to go into the front of the book and you find and then you come down to this little part and it's reversed, unfortunately. So on his right thigh will be a mole resembling the eye. Now, let me read that correctly. On his right thigh there will be a mole resembling the eye of pristine cognition. And he will be born in the dragon or snake year. I said this in another video. I was born in the year of the dragon. There's, I think it's still there. It's a mole within a mole. Anyway, it's getting fainter as you get older. The melatonin reverses, or not reverses, gets washed out. And that's a two-factor authentication, year and a birthmark in a certain place. That birthmark comes from Max, comes from Padmasambhava. So I did not put the birthmark on my body. And the second part, which means that spiritual influences can affect the formation of the womb in a mother's body, or excuse me, the formation of, there it went, formation of the fetus within the mother's womb. Spiritual forces can affect the formation of a fetus within a mother's womb. So that's why, as a tantric practitioner, you're always super polite to women, even when you think you're not. That makes no sense. What makes sense is that you have to be polite with women. You respect the life force. Respect women above all. And that, I think, if anybody that's seriously studied tantric Buddhism, they get. What I'm looking for is the other thing. There, this junk, this thing. And then you go all the way to the back. It's a big old magic spell, right? So in conclusion, the mantra circle should be accurately inscribed in a headed script on a sheet of fine blue paper the size of a 4-finger width booklet using refined gold, the color of the Buddha, and it should be rolled up in silk in the right way. Then on the 8th day of the lunar month coinciding with the constellation Cancer. When was I born? This is very close to my historical due date. Anyway, enough of that. The one thing I did want to get off, Amy Eskridge. What summer this would be, I'll do more chit chats about Max later, but Amy Eskridge was, I think, pushed into her suicide with Mark Sokol in a car. This is 2 summers ago. And he took a call from a guy. So my Swiss cheese memory, or I don't remember the guy's name, but Mark, this guy had a discussion and pretended to be an FBI agent with Mark. And then what they were talking about pertained to Amy Eskridge. And the guy was looking for information about her from Mark. Mark didn't really give much information, and he was appropriately defensive. And then he called up Tim Ventura afterwards. And Tim knows the guy. He doesn't know him. He's not like friends, but he knows of this guy. And during that discussion, Tim said that this guy was pretends to be a cop. So whoever this guy was harassing Amy Eskridge, and probably was the reason that she went out and ended her life. So that's 20 minutes. I think I will end that and put some links. If I can. Nope. Give me my thing, end stream.